Mine is, I mean, it's a very sort of watered down, but I like the volume of it.
Okay.
Because
I understand.
Yeah, so it's
hot out. You want to stay cool.
Right.
Long,
it's a venti iced coffee. It's with no classic, 2 pumps cinnamon dolce, and some oat milk.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
oat milk. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm just getting used
I'm a monster.
to. No, you're not. No, I think you're like, my body is becoming intolerant to the
really?
to the lactose.
Oh.
Yeah. So I have to moderate.
Alternatives are great. I think I just like have this. My dad was English, and I need my heavy creams. I need my milks. I need my chocolate. It doesn't taste like vomit.
Ew, vomit chocolate.
Well, this is fully a tangent, but I was reading about why does chocolate in America taste different than chocolate in Europe, and it has to do often with milk content. But one of the other things is that a long time ago, Hershey did this thing where they're like, well, we want to get these bars as far as they can go. And most chocolate had to be purchased locally because it was perishable. And the dairy content gave it a limited shelf life. So Hershey worked out this way to basically sort of pre-rot the milk or the lactose, or basically like make it go bad first. So
Yum.
Yeah, so sometimes, and I'm not describing this well, but the point is they made that choice a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And Hershey's like, well, we can't change it, even though like now they totally could and it would be fine. But they're like, well, but people are used to this taste now. It's like the taste of shit, like is literally sometimes European people come over and they're like, this American chocolate, it smells like vomit, or it has like this.
Interesting.
And I'm sorry for everyone who now is going to taste this because I can't not taste it anymore. And once I learned about this, look it up, look up the process. It's some kind of process they do to the lactose or something, or the milk content and the fat. And anyway,
Hershey's Kisses.
Hershey's burp ups.
I'm still gonna eat them.
No, I mean, I'm not like saying like, oh, if you like that, you're somehow lacking in taste. That's not it.
No, but it's just science.
Even though Cadbury's the same company, right? Everywhere, it's like they do a different process. So even like dairy milk bars taste a little different here than they do in England.
Europe's just better.
They're just better. I'm sorry.
No, this is relevant.
No, I mean, I just think if Hershey's not going to use if you're not going to use real milk and real fat, then get into the oat milk, go get ahead of it. You know what I mean?
Could they do an oat milk chocolate bar?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I feel like it could happen.
Maybe. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Hey, Victoria.
Hey, Chelsea.
You know what I could use?
What could you use?
A Hershey's bar. I'm just kidding.
Gross.
No, I could use a Breath of Fresh movie.
Me too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a movie I like to see.
This is a Breath of Fresh Movie, a podcast where me, Victoria Harley,
and me, Chelsea Pope,
we watch a movie neither one of us has ever seen before, and then we talk about it. Yeah. And that's it. And we won't talk about everything, but we will talk about anything.
Spoilers ahead.
Yeah, so look out. This week's movie is the 2004 romantic drama Before Sunset. 9 years after Jesse and Celine met, they encounter each other again on the French leg of Jesse's book tour. And that's the simplest way to describe this movie. But how would you describe it?
I mean, it is that. It's essentially,
that's the plot.
Yeah.
But it's not the story.
I guess it's a continuation of their love story. Yeah. The two of them, they see each other, they talk for a while again, and then
it's over.
And then it's another one of those endings that's semi-ambiguous, but then of course the next movie comes out, and it codifies what actually happens. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was breezy. This is a short movie.
No, I saw it runtime 1 hour and 20 minutes, and I was kind of like, well done. I know we're always, when I was younger, I used to really be so proud of long movies. I'm like, yeah, you don't have attention span. But now everything is so overblown and overwrought that it's I'm now completely in the other corner. Anything that can get it done efficiently and quickly, it gets way more love for me now.
Absolutely.
Just right now. That's how I've been feeling.
I mean, you got to really earn it. you know? Yeah.
Justify it. I mean, we
Yeah.
love Drive My Car, and that was 3 hours.
I like, but Drive My Car, I wouldn't cut a thing.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
No, sometimes it's worth
It's
it.
necessary.
It's just interesting how like long movies used to be this thing that people were like, ugh, you know, I mean, people do complain about them now, but it's amazing just how it's, oh, you don't mind 3 hours when it's an Avengers movie, I guess.
Right. Was Endgame like 3 hours?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I've seen
I
so
got burnt
little.
out before Phase 4 even started.
I saw like the Spider-Man movies Sony made in the 2000s.
Oh,
you
sure.
know, like those are that I saw like the first two. That's about the extent of it.
Yeah. You haven't seen Spider-Man 3?
No.
That's okay.
I've seen clips from it.
You don't need to. Well,
I've heard things.
it's fine. I mean, it's really not that bad. It just was like,
that's still a Tobey Maguire one, right?
it's still better than a lot of, I would argue it's still better than a lot of Marvel movies at this point because it's so saturated, and certainly better than a number of DC movies. It's certainly more like interesting.
Yeah.
But it's definitely it falls off quite a bit compared to the first two, especially that second one. That second one was
pretty good.
Pretty solid.
Similarly, this second movie was very good. I mean, like I enjoyed Before Sunrise. I have to make sure I get these words right. I enjoyed Before Sunrise. I thought this was so much better though. Like I was, or at least, and I think some of that's just because this is where I'm at in life. I'm approximately the age they are, you know, and it's, we lose a bit of mystery. Like we're not, you know, we're relearning the characters, but it's not as like mysterious as it was that first time where we were having the experience of learning at the same time as the characters. This is a little different. That's the only thing though that I think didn't come from the first one. Like I think everything else, like the whole debate between like idealism and cynicism and romanticism, and all of that is still very much at play. And then I think also it just felt more, there was more pain in it. Yeah, there was just more real pain.
They were more developed. You could see the way that the characters have grown, and I think they did a really good job, especially considering the first film did do so well, and there is so much power in that ambiguity. And I like the opening scene, just like immediately, it's so meta and immediately calls out, you know, oh well, you're either an optimist or you're this.
That was so funny because we literally said that last week on the show, and I had not seen this yet, you know, and I was like, well, you know, it ends, you either, if you're an optimist, you think they get together, if you're, and it's like, that's
it's
literally
very much stands alone.
The
first one.
It's literally how this movie begins. The fact that, so Jesse's written a book about the experience that he had 9 years before. And apparently this book is successful enough that he's, you know, on a tour in Europe. And I love how, you know, they made this decision when they parted ways. We're not going to exchange any information. And I love how immediately they're like, that was so stupid. Why did we do that?
Yeah. It's very self-aware, but not to the point where it becomes exhausting. Yeah. Like I feel like they did a really good job towing that line pretty well.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny. I was writing down a lot of stuff, and always at the beginning, I feel like I'm writing down way more things, and then as time goes on, I just get sucked in. But there's this moment where he's asking her about the book at the very beginning, kind of like, "Oh, you read it?" And she's like, "Yeah," you know, and you know, she's trying to describe how she felt about it, and she's like, "Well, it's really well written," and I'm like, "Oh, that's a kiss of death to writers. When you tell a writer like it's really well written, it's kind of like there's nothing else to say about it." Now, I know she had more to say about it, but there was something, and maybe it wasn't meant that way, but that line.
She plays her cards very close to her vest for the first, half of this.
And understandably, because the whole reason they've re-met is because she loves to go to this bookstore, Shakespeare and Company, which I'm told is a magical bookstore in Paris. Like you can, what they said about staying the night, you can stay the night there. It's like,
wild.
I want to do that one day.
Well, bookstore.
Maybe not, but point is, she goes to this bookstore a lot. She sees his photo on a authors that are going to come visit soon, and she learns enough to get the book, to find out that he's now married, has a child, and here he is on this tour making a living kind of off this experience they had together. And she kind of shows up and just catches him off guard, and he's right to stumble the way he does, but it's just like, she's really much more angry about it than she's willing to admit at first. Or
understandably, there's I could see that resentment.
And the way that she torture him is, we didn't have sex.
Yeah,
you know,
or to pretend that she didn't remember.
Yeah, pretend she didn't remember exactly that. It wasn't that significant.
Right.
But then, of
very
course,
protective.
But I did love later how she's like, "You idiot, we had sex twice."
Yeah.
Like, you didn't
like,
even...
of course she remembers. Yeah.
That he got it wrong in the book.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe that wasn't what she meant, but
just, yeah, the idea that, like, of course, this was a significant moment that she remembered very well.
It's so funny how the way they're talking about, like, you know, the book again, she's like, everyone wants to believe in love, you know, it sells. All these conversations about the book are really kind of just about them. It's just like, this is like an intermediary that we can use. But okay, so we find out that basically she didn't come to Vienna because grandma died.
But he did.
And she immediately is like, "You didn't go, did you?" And he's like, "No." And we all know he's lying.
Yeah, they're both like, "Wait, did you go? Wait,
yeah.
Did you?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like later he has this moment where he's like he's clearly frustrated and he just drops all the pretense. He's like, "Why didn't you meet me? Like, why? Like, my whole life changed." And like once they start getting into that, that's really where I'm like, oh, this is good and hurts real bad. Like if you've ever had a really intense relationship with somebody, or just somebody you felt like the other half of your soul, and then like they're gone.
Yeah.
And I know they only met one day and it's not the same thing, but if you've ever had like a, you know, I hate this phrase like great love, you know, I think that's kind of bullshit, but I think the idea that like this one choice leads him to marry somebody he doesn't really love, have a child that he does love because it's his child, but the fact that she starts laughing because she realizes his life is actually way worse than hers, because at least she's not trapped in something like that.
Yeah, it's a very, it's a, he really, you really confine yourself, especially once kids get involved.
Yeah.
when you make that decision. And
there was a part of me that really was like, oh, it's kind of, he sounds a little bit like my wife doesn't understand me. You know, I was like, is he just kind of, I'm very suspicious of him in this at all times. I don't know why. And it's not, again, until he becomes vulnerable and she starts to like, oh, okay, things haven't been good for you. I thought you had this great life and you don't. And we do that all the time, right? Like we invent, like we fill in all the gaps and we assume that people are having like the greatest life, the greatest time. When the fact is like everybody's fucking miserable. Right?
Yeah.
Like everybody's
got their own problems that they're not alluding to, and we're just presenting our best selves.
Totally.
And of course he looks like he's the successful author that's traveling.
On paper.
And he's got a lot going on, but he's actually very unhappy.
Oh yeah. And like that moment of them meeting and then not meeting fundamentally changed him and his life. Like it wasn't just the actions he took, it was the things he believed. And I think that's really what I loved about this movie, was that the idealism of the first one felt familiar, in that it's like, oh yeah, like I remember having, you know, we were talking about like, oh, I've had that conversation.
I remember having hope.
Well, they haven't had as much pain thrown at them yet, so I feel like there's more room for them to talk about these like bigger, more grandiose ideas.
Right.
Whereas in this one, it's tying those ideas to the very, like, to their reality.
Yeah.
When she said the whole thing about, when I read your book, I remembered how idealistic I was then. And like, I don't know, I've looked back on times where I was like, oh my God, we were just like playing house. Like, you know.
And she was very idealistic too in that first film. I mean, she takes him to task so much about his own cynicism.
And then she's the cynic
herself.
In this.
In this. And I very much related and felt bad for that. When they're in the car together and she's getting worked up and upset that she's this sort of starter girlfriend, or she's the one who, you know, these guys tell her, oh, thank you for teaching me how to love. And, you know, like she had to, like, it was her responsibility to have to train these guys to learn how to be decent,
to go and get married
partners. And then they, exactly. And then they go and commit themselves after her
to a woman.
And I found that very relatable.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't say I've had that experience a lot personally, not because it couldn't, but just like, I think I'm a serial monogamous. So it's just like, not that can't happen if you're serial monogamous. Of course that can happen. I mean, I can remember my boyfriend's sister was like seeing this, well, not my current boyfriend, a past boyfriend, his sister was seeing a guy for years. And, you know, she really wanted to get married, very traditional. And then it doesn't work out, whatever, they break up. He moves on. The next person he's with, he gets married. Yeah. You know, and it's that shit is maddening. It is really like, it's hard to, and I think a lot of women, especially now, like, I mean, I felt like Celine was so contemporary, like her complaining about, like, well, not complaining, but him being like, well, you know, the world's better. And she's like, better? What are you talking about? And it's worth noting that this film was shot in the summer of 2003, which was at that point one of the hottest summers on record in Europe since like the 1540 something. I don't know. I have the dates. the fact that they're talking about global warming and, you know, things that are...
And it's a post 9/11 world.
It's like when you watch like I Heart Huckabees and you realize like, oh, all of that came true. All of that was very prescient. And
yes.
So this movie is just like, it speaks to the present because it was looking forward, like in a way. And the fact that she works so directly environmental concerns and things, because, you know, she said, I just got tired of having these endless conversations about how everything was broken. I'm like, God, that is our lives right now.
It feels hopeless. It's nice to see people that are trying to take action. And I like the idea of her as a character sticking to being proactive and putting those ideas forward. And
totally.
it's very, you know, it's very easy to become complacent.
Yeah, he expresses his admiration for that, right? You know, and there's a certain, I think anyone who chooses maybe a creative path but cares about what happens in the world, which I assume would be a lot of creative people. But I think there is like a guilt, you know, that like, oh, I should.
Yeah,
I'm not really helping.
I'm being selfish.
Yeah, I'm not helping anyone. Like where she's really in it, you know, she's really living her values. Sort of related, unrelated. I loved when she talked about the experience of going to Warsaw and not knowing the language and being away from all her normal habits of like television. And she was like, and then it was just me and my thoughts. And I felt like this incredible restfulness. I could think for the first time. I'm like, is that what it
sounds nice?
I know. I'm like, I think I heard her say that. And I'm like, I think I want to just delete all my social media accounts.
Maybe I could go to Warsaw.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. It was just, she had this kind of, she shared an experience that I'm not saying like, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what I'm getting at. It was just the idea of like being able to shut things off, like sounded very nice.
Yes.
And again, very appealing right now.
Absolutely. What else? We're being so bombarded. And
oh my God.
There's so much mental clutter.
Oh, and in 2004, it's like comparatively less bombarding, right? In 1994, even comparatively, like, I mean, it just, you go back. I had a film professor once, the only film class I ever took, but he was like, he used that word and bombarded. He was like, you have no idea how often you are just bombarded with messaging, with you need this, desire creating shit, like people trying to show themselves to be having a great time. Like, it's too much. And you can't, how are you supposed to know what's going on inside you if all you're ever doing is receiving?
Yes, absolutely. So it's exhausting.
I'm tired.
So are these characters.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting that he had the wedding ring on, but we didn't actually talk about the wedding, the marriage, and till way later. Like they just
he's very disinterested.
He does not bring it up. Like and she brings it up.
She brings it up because I mean it's this big elephant in the room. Meanwhile, he's being very like
flirty.
He's like sliding down the stair pole and like, oh, he's being so kid-like.
He was smiling so much.
Something activated.
And again, that was like part of me that was, I hate you and your. I was like, I hate your fucking face, you know, smiling. He was joking and smiling a lot in this way that you could tell he was trying to like, I'm just so happy to see you. This is so surreal. It's so amazing. But you're actually very upset right now. Yeah. And you're also sublimating it. That's the tension of it, is like the resentment they actually bore each other and, you know.
All the things they wanted to say all this time, but it takes time. It takes
you can't get into it.
For them to just peel back those layers of, at first that shock and excitement and, the giddiness.
Yeah. And then the like, so why didn't this happen? And you're right.
Then the questions start coming up and it gets really interesting.
Yeah. It's like a balloon that's like losing air or something.
Right.
It's like, it starts with this big full feeling. And then over time, it's like the air starts getting let out and we're left with just like the little sad bit of rubber, like of what we used to be. I don't know. I also feel like he tries to one-up her still. Like, I feel like that's going on. She's somewhat arrogant at times. Like, I think she's a little... He keeps talking about wanting to fuck, and he's married with a kid?
Right. Like, he, like, pulls her into his lap, like, in that moment. And I'm just like, oh, dude. Wow.
Yeah. And then there's, like, there's some story about, like... He tells her a story. I don't remember what it was. I'm sorry. But, she's like, is that true? And he's like, well, I don't know, but I always like the story. Mm-hmm. I don't know. For some reason, I felt like that was also thematic, to all of this. Like, they're telling each other things that sound nice, but is that really...
It's what are we gilding, the lily here?
Oh,
we're going out of our way to kind of like smooth over the edges.
And, yeah. you don't have to answer because it's incredibly personal, but I mean, is there anybody in your life, and you don't have to get into details, but like where you feel this like, my life would have been so different? Or,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, I mean, in terms of romantic entanglements, absolutely. I think there's a number of not just romantic, platonic, what
friendships.
have you,
Friendship breakups are hard.
I've gone through a lot of serving jobs, and I think about like, I mean, there's all the sliding doors, right? There's all the branches I think about in the multiverse of like, oh, what if I had stayed at that agency and continued with desk work as opposed to going into doing restaurants or whatever? What if I had done what if I'd gone to this college instead? What if I, what if I had gone on a second date with this guy?
Yeah. I mean, it's we all have regrets, and you have to kind of like love your regrets.
Oh,
which is like a hard thing to do. But,
it's tough. It's, thinking back from 10 years ago to now, I mean, it's very relatable, like how the concrete starts to harden,
Yeah.
it's
no, you're absolutely right.
And I worry about that sometimes because I do feel cynical. I do feel negative, and I don't want that to be a permanent state. But at a certain point, it's like, well, we are
who we are.
We are the sum of our experiences and how we process those.
I mean, they talked about that in the movie too, right?
Yeah.
Like that, your perspective. What you said about like the concrete hardens, like I think that's such a perfect image, because like I feel like these are people who like their concrete isn't totally hardened,
right?
And they're trying to just like, maybe it's not too late,
right?
Like maybe it's not too late to get out of this.
Exactly. Maybe we can smooth over some of those,
which does make it feel hopeful, right? Because it's like, okay, he's married, he has a child. That's not nothing, but so he gets a divorce. If they need to, like the way it ends, And by the way, she wrote all the songs like that she plays, and
really delightful too. The guitar scene is so endearing, and
like the fact that like
how vulnerable too.
Oh my god! And it was like also like he needed that though. He needed that confirmation. Like you write a song about somebody, you felt something strong, like whether it's love or frustration, whatever. But she wrote a fucking song about him. So any of the like, oh, I'm not sure.
And you wrote a book.
Went away. It's like, oh yeah, we're both refeeling this. And I do love the whole the last line. Like I love a movie where like they say the last line, I'm like, oh god, I hope that's the last line. And then it goes black.
Right.
Like, yes. Like, and
that's
it was
really
like,
good.
You're gonna miss your plane. Yep. Love that so much.
That's great. I like that just I feel like towards that end, he's gonna take her back to her place, and it just keeps being this sort of like reminds me a little bit of the Bugs Bunny Yosemite Sam, cross the line, like draws the line in the sand, crosses over, draws the line. There's a little bit of that, or a little bit of like if you give a mouse a cookie kind of thing, and he keeps saying, oh well, why don't we let's
I'll walk you to your door.
I'll walk you to your door. Why don't you let's go up? You play me one of your songs.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Make me some tea. Yeah. It just keeps, it's at that point
they keep moving the goalpost.
I'm like, is there going to be some sort of other interrupter? And it's like, no, I think they're both conscious and aware. Like they've spent this movie thinking about the what ifs and the regrets, and he articulates that even at her doorstep. Like I don't want this to be one of those things. Why didn't I just go up for 10 minutes?
Right.
Like why didn't I just do it?
Right.
Yeah. So we get to indulge in sort of, I guess there's a bit of that wish fulfillment, or they're trying to make up for that lost what if by not re-meeting at that train station. Like so he's like, he doesn't want to make that mistake again.
No.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, I think, the way it kind of, there's so much, this is a movie that's almost in real time, I mean, there's no clock in the corner like in 24, but it's there's a rushness because it's like, well, I only have so much time, so they're talking, we're moving fast, and we're walking, and it's like, and the pace like slows and slows and slows,
right? Like
even being in the taxi, right? Like they're in motion, but it gives them like a chance to settle a little bit more.
Right.
And a lot, that like experience too of like sometimes when you're in a car and you're both facing forward, it's easier to talk about things in a very real way than if you're facing each other. And I don't know, I felt like some of that was going on there. That chauffeur or taxi driver, that haircut.
Yeah.
It was intense.
It was a choice.
It was a choice. I was wondering about his wife a little bit, Jesse. I'm like, what's her side of the story? You know,
Right.
like, again, that's me being not as romantic. One of I wrote this line down because it felt pretty much like the thesis of the film, which is when you're young, you think there will be more connections. And as you get older, you realize it only happens a few times. Right. And like, yeah, when you're young, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, like I have this friend and I met this person and like, you know.
You have all this ahead of you.
Yeah. And then as you go along, you're like, oh, shit. Like the number of people I really have cared about, it's like one hand, you know, counted on one hand or maybe two, you know. It's not a lot. And knowing that and that like when you've casually tossed one away or even not casually, let's just say one is gone. Yeah. It's a part of you's gone. Like, you know, and you don't get it back.
It's true.
It's just gone.
But what if you could, is what this movie's
That's what this movie is asking.
But what if you could?
What if you could? It does, you know, kind of like, I think, I don't want to say it's dangerous, but it's like, sometimes relationships end for a reason. And like reminiscing about the past can be dangerous, you know? And it's easy to simplify. And I think maybe that's part of what the next movie will address, right? Because like, they're remembering this one day, this intense connection. And although they expressed every doubt and we've come back and there's clearly still a connection, it doesn't mean this is going to be easy or without problems. Right. So I am looking forward to seeing like what that looks like in the next film. Absolutely. I have some production notes here we can share. Soon after Before Sunrise, Linklater, Hawke, and Delpy discussed a sequel. You know, it was pretty much under discussion right away. Initially, it was a much bigger project and it was going to be like multiple cities and, you know, all these other and I'm just like trying to even imagine how that would have fit or worked, but whatever. The point is they couldn't get the funding, so that didn't happen. So they scaled it back. And Ethan Hawke said, he's like, it's not like anybody was begging us to do a second film. We obviously just did this because we wanted to. You know, nobody asked for this.
Definitely a passion project.
Absolutely. So they revised it to be in Paris on location and in real time, you know, that we're going to really have this condensed timeline. And he's on his way to catch a flight. It was shot in 15 days. And as I mentioned, this was during a very hot summer, one of the hottest on record. It was the 2003 European heat wave, which was the biggest since 1540. That was the thing. Now, that's probably since been eclipsed.
Oh, for sure.
Sadly to say. But that summer, it was 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, pretty much every day. And they were shooting outside. And it was also very challenging for the director of photography to recreate that moment, you know, like, okay, there's ambient light that's warm today. Right. But we're catching the rest of the scene tomorrow. I need to match that.
I'm just thinking like, man, they did a good job not letting anybody look too sweaty.
Her look, I loved what she was wearing. I was like, I want that. Yeah. So French. It was like somewhat respectable, but then a little sexy. A little flowy top. Yeah. I'm like, I see a low back. I like it. This is a film that really is noted for its use of Steadicams. And just like the first film, long takes. But, you know, Steadicams are very unobtrusive. You know, that's why they're popular and it creates this kind of documentary feel. But the longest take on the Steadicam was 11 minutes long. Oh, wow. And if you've ever seen anyone put on one of those Steadicam rigs, it's not nothing. I mean, it's like being in a marching band.
Imagine with the heat, too.
Exactly. Yeah. I should have wrote down the camera operators' names. No wonder it was only
120 minutes.
So yeah, lots of challenges, you know, with the lighting, which I just, you know, I'm glad directors of photography exist because I don't want to have to think through all that.
And they go inside and they drink hot tea. I mean, they're not really drinking it, of course, but it's just funny. The
absolutely
idea
insane. Right. It's a hot day. You want a hot tea?
Yeah. It's not about the tea.
Not about.
So the more the reason.
Never about the tea.
Never been about the tea.
Linklater himself said, Before Sunrise is possibly the lowest grossing film ever to spawn a sequel. Yeah. Love that. His whole thing, though, he was talking about how he's got a real strong Godardian influence. So Jean-Luc Godard really was interested in the idea that you make a documentary about characters acting out of fiction. you know, and that's how you can feel real and part of it. And so this is very much influenced by that kind of philosophy and that sort of idea. And it's highly, highly rehearsed to appear improvised, you know? And that's something too, like, I think sometimes people watch this stuff and they're like, oh, there must have been so much improvising, or they must have made that up. It's like, no.
Yeah, they really measured everything.
Everything's measured.
Yeah.
And it was a little tangent, but Steve Coogan, like his Alan Partridge various shows, I mean, it's the same deal. They feel so natural, like they're really like improvised or happening, but it's like, no, every pause, everything has been rehearsed. It's like, it is down to every breath. And I don't know, I just, as somebody who, I mean, I only do sketch comedy, but there's never enough rehearsals. Like,
right.
I always want more rehearsal.
Right.
Whatever. I don't know anything about acting.
Well, it sounds like you know a lot.
I know what other people are good at. So this film came about, again, because they were all like, we want to make another. Linklater had won the Silver Bear for Before Sunrise. That's the Berlin International Film Festival's top prize. That sounds cool. I want a Silver Bear.
Yeah.
I want one just to have.
I want a gummy bear.
That sounds good too. He went on to make Waking Life and Scanner Darkly, which are both in films that he shot normally and then had rotoscoping applied after the fact. And it creates a really interesting... I never saw A Scanner Darkly, but I remember being pretty curious.
I just saw Waking Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm a fan of that. I've never seen Waking Life. He did a few other more commercial things. Some of these might have come actually after Before Sunset, but Bad News Bears, he did that remake of the 70s classic, I don't know. And he did School of Rock, which is another one of those movies that I sort of forget. Bad News Bears didn't do so well financially and critically. People really liked School of Rock.
Yeah.
So I saw it.
Pretty darn good, actually.
No, and he, you know, there's lots of, we'll talk a little bit more about some of his other films next week when we finish up this Before Trilogy series. But one thing I heard about that I was really fascinated about was in 2003, he wrote and directed an HBO pilot called $5.15 an hour. And it was about minimum wage restaurant workers.
Interesting.
I'm like, I want to see that pilot.
Yeah, is it out there somewhere?
It might be. We'll have to dig for it.
Yeah.
It might not be. However, a lot of the issues that he wrote about in that did end up being addressed in the film Fast Food Nation, which he directed in 2006.
Yeah.
So it's not like all the ideas were lost, but I'm like, God, I would love that show right now.
Right.
Like I want minimum wage life to be like shown.
Honestly depicted.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you like Superstore and whatever, it's fine. But it's like, I can't stand these shows.
Too, the idealized work family thing. No, not quite my bad. I mean, people, I think like other people
I think we all
out about that.
I mean, it's like The Office or, you know, any workplace comedy where... I know comedy, you got to keep it light, but I'm like, even more of a reason than for someone to be totally intolerable.
Yeah.
like that's the reality is like, oh, God damn it. Bill's here, you know?
Yeah.
Susie's here.
It's the idea of having to, how do you make such disparate personalities interact? Like you have to force them into the setting together.
It does kind of feel like if you made a show accurately, I don't want to say it would be unwatchable, but I think it would be depressing.
Sure.
Like, I think it would be like, Christ.
I mean, there's The Bear.
That's true.
Speaking of bears.
I've only seen the first episode. Very impressed. Very impressed.
People are really into it.
They're into it.
Yeah.
Jeremy Allen White's got that like scumbag hot guy thing going.
Yeah.
I'm not like a huge fan.
It's fine if you like him.
But I watched Shameless and he played a character in there that was really, there was a lot of cool charisma about it. And it was another Chicago-based show.
Right.
Of course, that's a remake of a British show. I actually saw Jeremy Allen White at Home Depot once in line at the U-Scan, and I was just like, I know who you are. I didn't tell him that. I just stood back quietly like, oh my God, it's Lip. Just a few more things. There is a documentary about Richard Linklater that I probably should watch before next week called Sir Richard of Austin. And it was a British documentary made about him. It was a Channel 4 film. Gonna have to find that.
I like that title.
Sir Richard of Austin. Yeah. I know, it's so English.
Is he knighted?
I don't think so. Oh, sorry. You know, it's not Sir Richard. I got that wrong. It's Saint Richard of Austin. So it's, yeah.
Is he sainted?
He's not sainted.
No.
He's got to be dead for like 800 years, right? Or
gotcha.
Something? Yeah. They're trying to fast track Mother Teresa, but you know. Yeah, it sounded cool. I think a lot of it is just, as we mentioned last week, Linklater is like, nope, I live and work in Austin. or at least I don't work in Hollywood. I don't live in Hollywood. And so I think he really established a scene in Austin for filmmakers. I mean, there was one already, but I mean, to this day, people can go and intern at his film production company. You know, I mean, it's keeping cinema in Austin.
He's part of what's made that hub.
Big part of it.
Thrive.
Yeah. Not the only part, but a big part. So I think it's interesting that the English are like, that's an interesting story. Let's make a doc. So that came out, well, I didn't write down. I think it was around like 2004 or 5. So right around the time this film was released. Before Sunset was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. That nomination was shared with Curzan, Delpy, and Hawke. I had to I stumbled on that for a second. I was like, adapted? Like they wrote that. Like what do you mean adapted? And it's like, because it's a sequel. It's considered like
do they just do that with every sequel?
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know, because I was like, why isn't this an original? Why isn't this considered original? And it was like, because I guess it's based on a previously established work. I think is the technicality there. I was very confused by that, but
I don't know. I feel like they go out of their way to try to shoehorn certain things in certain. I feel like maybe the original screenplay category was maybe it was too overfilled or something.
Maybe
I don't know.
I gotta do better research. I gotta go and look at the other people who are nominated.
You do pretty good research.
I try, but I'm like, oh my God, I have a full-time job, and the podcasts I love, that I'm like, how do they do it? And then I find out they hire researchers.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn it. I got to get a job doing that for them. That's pretty much all I've got about Linklater this week, just to bring us up to this time period, or the next film, which is Before Midnight. Is there a best supporting player in this? Because there's really hardly any encounters.
There really aren't, and like I
unlike the first film where like they needed people to interrupt them.
Maybe the cat. The cat's pretty cute.
I did like the kid. Yeah, Kitty's cute.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, Kitty. Yeah.
Yeah, that sequence in general when they're going to her place, it's so idealized and romanticized.
Oh, what a beautiful apartment too.
Yeah, and just like interacting with the neighbors and stuff.
And that's so Parisian too, to like where there would be like a concierge who would have your key. So like you don't take your keys out with you into the world. Like you leave your apartment, you leave your key with the concierge, and then you go out. And when you come home, you get your key from the concierge and go up.
Well, that's really good for drunk people.
I mean, it is. It also, though, I remember that being explained to me in a film class, the only film class I ever took, because we were watching, I think it was Vivre sa vie, My Life to Live. And there's a scene where she's clearly behind on the rent, and she's trying to sneak past the concierge, who's also kind of like the landlord, because she wants to get into her apartment, without having to like deal with that.
Yeah.
And she tries to run past, and basically like it doesn't work.
Gotcha.
But I remember our professor having to explain that like in France at this time, and maybe still, like that's kind of how some buildings operate.
Right.
And that's pretty normal. So I was kind of delighted just to see that, and but it was kind of like when we watched Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, and there was that the person at the front, right, who wasn't exactly a concierge, but the Jehovah's Witness,
right?
Like, I wish I could lie. I'd be so good at it. It's a different style of living, and it's not necessarily one I want, but that her apartment was so like quintessentially Parisian. I mean, entering through the courtyard and coming and you're right, like the neighbors grilling out in the yard. That was great. I loved that. Like I loved just those little bits of life, which was also what we got in the first movie. Like those shots of where we didn't know any German and we're watching life happening. I'm glad they worked in a few of those, because that really was one of the only places they had any interaction.
That's true.
That and the chauffeur. So the kitty gets best supporting player.
There you go.
I like that. That feels right.
Yeah.
Would you watch this again?
Yeah, maybe casually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do it again.
Sure.
I would actually, because I've only watched these movies now for the first time, like at home. I would love to see these in a theater. I do think that would be cool. So
do like a triple screening.
Yeah.
Triple feature.
Oh my God. Bathroom.
Marathon.
We need a bathroom break.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to say about this?
No, I mean, it's a short watch. I'm good. I feel like we talked for half the length of the movie itself.
Yeah,
so
we shouldn't go too much further.
Watch the movie.
Please hit us up. We love email. Seriously. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I did talk to my uncle started listening.
Just kidding.
No. I mean,
Thanks for listening.
basically, I was like, oh, please listen. And then he wrote in, and he listened to our What's Up Doc episode. So it's from my Uncle Fausto. He said, I definitely saw What's Up Doc with your Aunt Rose. We were newly married, and we went to the movies at least once a week. I share two great passions with your aunt: movies and gambling. The gambling came later, thank God. We were both big Cary Grant fans, so of course we had to see this homage to Bringing Up Baby. I'm sure we saw it in downtown Boston. In those days, movies wouldn't hit the suburbs for weeks or months, depending on how successful they were. We loved it immediately. There were so many inside jokes, I'm sure we missed some of them. After Love Story, Ryan O'Neal was as hot as anyone, and Streisand was Streisand. When Jimmy, that's my cousin, their son, was old enough, maybe 7 or 8, we'd have summer movie festivals, and one summer was dedicated to screwball comedies. We saved What's Up Doc for last. To this day, he can quote lines from it.
That's cute.
So he said, I used to keep a list of every movie I ever saw, but the list is gone, unfortunately. That breaks my heart.
Aww.
I'm like, we gotta find that list. However, there was really only one movie in 72, The Godfather. So the lines were endless. I know we saw it dozens and dozens of other movies, but I just can't remember them. He said, one we didn't see was Cabaret. Your aunt and I are not a fan of musicals. Things were changing in 72. New stars, new directors. After Dirty Harry in 71, Clint Eastwood was the biggest star in the world. But breathing down his neck was Nicholson, Redford, and McQueen. And Faye Dunaway seemed to be everywhere. He said, I'm sorry I can't give you more particulars, but the mind falters after 70 of living.
That's really good.
I mean, these are great particulars. What are you saying?
Yeah,
like this. So
well
anyway,
written.
he also requests that we review Empire of the Sun.
Okay.
Spielberg's best and grossly underrated.
Let's do it.
We could do that. Anyway, Thank you for listening, and thank you so much for writing in, because it's really great. I mean, obviously, a lot of these movies are before our time, and it's little details like, oh, right, like, of course it didn't come to the suburbs.
Right.
You know, and like,
yeah, it's interesting hearing about the before time.
I know. Yes.
Cabaret is really good, though.
That was a letter or note, whatever. That's fine. We have to. I'm trying to like make it seem like people listen to us.
Yeah, no, but like clearly, yeah, that's a fan mail.
That counts.
We just got a letter.
We got a letter. It was great. Again, we love hearing from you. So please reach out. Please engage. Please email us. Follow us on Instagram.
Please engage.
We you can reach us at abreathoffreshmovie at gmail.com. I'm thinking maybe we need like to start being meaner about this.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know. I feel bad when I'm mean.
Okay, we won't be mean then. I guess or maybe like, how do we goad people into
I don't
it?
know. Yeah, we have to incentivize it.
Like, I don't think any of our listeners know about this.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, some sort of tease.
Yeah, no one knows.
Actually.
Yeah.
Or a contest.
Oh, yeah. Or we just come on and agree to state a fact incorrectly multiple times.
Yeah.
And just see.
And you have to find the fact.
And then like just
but
see.
But then if no one does it, and then people are just going to like, who's
they're just going to think that's the truth.
That's the truth.
And then we have to issue corrections.
Oh, no.
This is messy. It'd be way easier if you just wrote us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can hit us up on Letterboxd, Instagram, Twitter at Fresh Movie Pod. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.